Right. It's AVT Pro, Alonzo Von Threet Advanced Visualization Technology Productions. And today I'm going to be talking about the MothLady, the Ermine Empress. And I'm not going to do much talking about it right now because I'm still working on some stuff for Daniel Lee. I'm working on fixing some of this animation right now. And for the Piggy Girls, and this is some of the images he released of that so far. And David and I are trying to resolve some issues real quick. But here's Daniel with a marquette, a sculpture, a Daniel in an artist's smock, looking at at people. If I caption this, I would say I would caption it as "What box?" Daniel, if they said think outside of the box, this is Daniel's look of what box? What box? Anyway, this is the Moth Lady, uh, and obviously he was sculpting it. I wasn't sure. Of course, nobody else could sculpt it except for Daniel, and especially these ideas. I'm not gonna talk to it. And here I wrote it. What box? Total out of the box thinker. Amazing subject. Many subliminal and conscious collisions of art, aesthetic, and anatomy. Just amazing. Matter of fact, when I was resculpting this, so I worked from the Marquette. So they took photos of this and then uh, sent me the photos. First, the question was, can you resculpt it? And I said, well, just scan it and I'll just edit it up. I was just trying to expedite the work, okay? Because there's a lot of work in getting it exactly the way it should be, and especially to Daniel's vision, which changes a bit. And so, but when you see this piece, this is very much a bug moth lady type look, and I think it was a very difficult for me to grasp that. Like Daniel want that to completely, like his aesthetic is like, that's why I say what box. Like I am still influenced by Western culture and Western thinking and Western art. I mean, you can call me a black artist all you want, or any kind of Afrocentric type of artist, but I was born and raised in America, and even though I wish I knew more, I actually did study at an African art import store, so I was heavily influenced about Afrocentric type of work, which I haven't really gotten into yet. I hope to do, but I still grew up on a kid as Marvel comics. I just thought about like how Marvel posts so many stuff, and me going to the store and getting comic books when it was 10 cents and 25-cent comics. Y'all can't imagine that, right? And this, Iron Man, Spider Man, Hulk. Like I was probably getting like version ones and twos back in the day. Shockwave, all of those characters. Like I knew as a child. Iron Man. Even though I think Marvel, Disney hack. Anyway, I'm not really mad at Marvel right now, Disney right now, because I have thousands of Disney DVDs, hundreds. Meaning I've spent thousands of dollars, and over COVID, I downloaded Mulan. I didn't go into anywhere. I downloaded Mulan. They hacked my computer and shut off my computer. I wouldn't even known if I hadn't had Google. I was like, what's wrong with my internet? And I'm working on a project. So I'm about to sell off all my DVDs. I'm no longer, anyway, that's not the subject. That's why I can't talk. But anyway, so I'm strongly influenced by Western culture, Western aesthetics. When I was 20 years old, I was an extremely slow reader. And my brother, he was also an artist, and who I learned a great deal from as an artist getting started. And he learned a great deal from me as a musician getting started. And we eventually just switched roles, so to speak. Went with our strengths, I guess. His was his ears, mine was my, whatever. But he, uh, I used to tape record The Illusion of Life. This is, speaking of Disney, this is a book that should never go out of print, is The Illusion of Life. And it is. And I'll try to get a copy of it. But I had a copy when I went to Bryan and Stratton. Uh, Bryan and Stratton for commercial art. And I actually used to actually teach for the class in the absence of the professor. But I would still get low grades. Love the professor and love the instructor. But he would still give me low grades and get cute blondes. Like, I shouldn't say that. Anyway, so I did anatomy. I was strongly influenced by American culture, but I really had to come out of that type in order to get this aesthetic. It breaks a lot of conventions, and also in a way of a very naturalistic kind of way. And I might do this video over, or I may post it later, but just to finish it out. So this is Daniel doing that, and like I said, I was strongly influenced by Marvel comics, and you draw a certain stylized way. There were certain Marvel comics that I was more geared towards than other. Like, I wasn't a huge Jack Kirby fan, or would draw towards his aesthetic, even though I like his work now, love his work now, but I understand his work, but I still wouldn't draw in that way. I had of a more of a conventional aesthetic. Like, my understanding, like, I study like Rembrandt, Seurat. I mean, just when you go like Renaissance, Degas. I'm not talking Renaissance, but it's just floating. Those are the names floating through my head because I got into a conversation with my bank teller or manager who had just opened at a different bank, open an account at a different bank, and so I had we got into a conversation. He asked me what was my favorite artist, and I said from what period, and so when you think about Renaissance artists, I was like, yeah, well, I other than the Mutant Ninja Turtle artists, I joked about that because Raphael, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, Donatello. What's the other Newton? It's not Raphael, Donatello, Michelangelo, and I don't know. There's no Ninja Turtle called Da Vinci, right? So anyway, but anyway, those artists I liked, and I studied those artists. But there's a lot more than those. Like, so, if you think about Caravaggio, and even some Adolphe William Bourgeois, I can't say his last name, but even though he wasn't during the Renaissance period, he was one of the best Renaissance type of artists before the modern movement. But then I started to explain like how the Sistine Chapel, Raphael was actually a apprentice to Michelangelo, and Da Vinci and Raphael had and Michelangelo had a bit of a rivalry. And so I went into those, and so I know art history, as well as someone of my upbringing. Like, I didn't go to Rome or Florence to study like some of the marble uh, actual digital sculptors, the premier marble digital sculptors have done. But I'm acutely aware of that type of work, and I do study it regardless. And all the palatial palisades and all of the kind of stuff. The internet is really great resource for all of that stuff. But so I have that strong influence. This is not quite like that, and it's so different from it. And then there's another influence. Like I'm strongly influenced by Dolly, and so there's a very surreal type of it's hard to explain, and I can't explain it with some of the subliminal things that goes on with this. Uh, Maybe phallic symbols, but it's just outstanding to be able to look at this work. This is the actual digital print that I did sculpt, an excerpt of the actual sculpt. But like things with the tummy, a lot of women don't, I mean, our aesthetic has got modern Western aesthetic, got women cutting their tummies and all of that stuff. I applaud any celebrity that don't go under the knife, that aren't, suctioning and surgeries and stuff. Any naturalistic kind of thing. I know, they have a business, so I'm not judging them either. But there's a beauty and aesthetic to that was very renowned. When you think of Rubens, they actually, that was a time when, having some plumpness or pudginess here and there was a sign of wealth. If you could have some weight, that meant you had money. That meant you was eating. You hear me, y'all? You was eating. You eating good. Yeah, that's prosperity. Yeah. Now, you rich and starving yourself. But not knocking, because some of them are my favorite models and great anatomical studies, which I use those type of multi-million-dollar models to get this aesthetic, for certain things for my anatomy. Now, I want to say something about that as well. I can go on and on. I'm going to try not to. Is that anatomically, I really do a biological anatomical study. Matter of fact, on this particular piece, I studied more than I did even in my early days of study. I studied bones and muscles that, you can't see. As an artist, basically, or as anatomically correct sculpture, you only have to really study cosmetic level. So artists have a topological, artistic, cosmetic study of the human form. But there's tons of I don't try to recognize every bone. Some people say you should, some say you don't. I don't go into the iliac crest, the actual names of all of the top of the tibius femur and each muscle group. I know that they exist, that they're in there and stuff, but in this particular one, the serraticus, the abdominis, all this kind of medical names and the kind of terminology why oh, let me go there. If you were going to say why Raphael, why Michelangelo, I heard a quote, and it may be true or not, where Da Vinci, it might have gotten from a movie, I don't know, where Da Vinci said that Michelangelo's sculpturing and his muscle groups and forms are like walnuts. I may have saw that on a movie. But be it so, if it were so, it would be because Da Vinci actually took cadavers and took, deceased bodies and did anatomical studies of them where he pulled every muscle apart. You can go to a museum nowadays and see that. They had one in Buffalo at one point. I didn't go. I was probably doing something else. So I might have went up there and didn't get in. I might have not had the money at the time to afford to go in. But I still study that. And looking at cadavers and stuff like that. And for a lot of the stuff, like even for animals and stuff like that, I have to really study. And so that's why people don't really understand like what it really takes to be an artist, or a certain level of art. So, but I said that if they had a discrepancy or rift, it would be because of that. Because Da Vinci actually did take the muscles apart, so he understood the muscles in a different way than any other artist would. And so his studies are used today in the study of many things. You know, like I say, I don't compete with the guy to my left or to my right. I don't really even look at other artists. Sometimes maybe I can look at it and they can influence. Some have taught me some things, but in general, I don't compete with them. I do compete with the Renaissance. I compete with corporations, Disney anyway. But I don't generally look to, if I was in a race, I wouldn't look to my right or my left. I would look ahead of me. You know, oops. No, no shade, no shade. Anyway, but so so I generally, that's my focus. Is like I look at those Renaissance, and like I say, I get into conversations with people, and like I said, the bank teller, he was an artist, and he knew of that, and he opened my account anyway. But anyway, he respected that kind of stuff. But anyway, what I was trying to say is for this particular model, I actually went and studied more than a topological or uh, cosmetic level for this particular anatomy. So I went in deep, deep in the bones, even the muscles underneath the bones, even muscles that you can't see. I really wanted to understand that. So there are muscles inside of the hip bones that you can't see, inside of the spine that you can't see as an artist, and that as an artist we are not usually charged to study. So I really wanted to understand that, like the different levels of the serraticus. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but then it's mixed with these other anatomical, these non-human anatomical structures. That so I had to do an anthropological. I lost my front teeth, so I can't say things anymore. I used to do art to the skin of my teeth. Now I do it. I don't have. And then it was my teeth. So anyway, but I could probably just age, and I always had bad teeth. I had a lot of dental work when I was young, as a child, and I just didn't take care of it for a while, and it just boom. But anyway, anthropologically, I had to study these beetles and stuff like that. Now there are some really great anthropological. This is an anthropomorphic character, but this I had to do an anthropological study, which is beetles and stuff like that. I'll mention, like if I say I look to my left, right, or look to other artists, it would be definitely Eric Keller at Noman. Incredible insects and butterflies, and you can get the same information. So I like to give them a credit. There's a lot of stuff, and always uh, uh, digital tutors and Noman, just deep, deep study. And this is the deep, deep scientific study that you have to do if you want to, you know, be on certain levels or take it to a certain level. So I mean, hey, you know, let that marinate. I say let it ferment. Okay, there's certain things that certain artistically age. Fermentation age. You have to get to that level in order to, stuff got to ferment for a while. You have to. It has to age for a while to get to that. Anyway, but no shade, no shade. Anyway, let me continue. I actually studied inside of the bones, inside of muscles that you can't see. Also because I rigged this stuff. So to understand the extensors, the flexors, and things that make the muscle move, I don't care what you think, no muscle pulls. It only contracts. So you extend your leg, it is the opposite of the muscle, of the physical mechanics that are working. So I studied it. That was my reasoning. It wasn't just solely for the sake of the sculpture, but for the anatomical. And I'll go into that more because I did do some muscle rigging for Daniel's work, and it's only because of Daniel's work that I have done some muscle rigging. I also like to give some credits and thanks. I always want to give a special thanks to my mom, my family, my father, and again, I mentioned my brother, Mark, who I studied as a young child. I mentioned Marvel. I mentioned the great artists. I also like to give a credit to my dearest Patsy, friend who I've known for decades, who passed in May. Uh, so Patsy A. Jones, great influence, helped me. Like I had to go out, being solitary is not good. We are social creatures. And so she was my one true believer that also helped me to, when I'm up here alone all day, all night, and I'm in the house all the time studying all kind of crazy stuff that, you know, quite honestly, back in the day, you couldn't even study some of this stuff. It was just too, out the norm. Like what box. So anyway, again, a great deal of aesthetics went into this. Some phallic, yes. I did some of the instructions. I understood some of the instructions. I could not understand. I could not grasp, and I had to fight sometimes with my Western type of aesthetic. Like, no, Daniel, you can't do it like that. And sometimes I'm right. Sometimes Daniel posted, we learn from each other. Sometimes I do have some influence, and sometimes I do interject with something. And I thank Daniel for his graciousness to allow me to express some of my aesthetics into, since it is a collaborative effort, and mind you, this is just one collaborative effort. That Daniel's show is a big show of tons of work that he's done. He's an art director. He has art directed movies and things like that. He not only sculpts, and of course, I've art directed as well. I had a small team. So, as an artist of his proficiency and level, you're going to get, or any artist, you're going to art direct. Sometimes you're in charge of the aesthetic, and I do a lot of stuff, like that. I have an affiliation with, I work with a mocap studio at the University of Buffalo, maybe I shouldn't mention their name, but one of the first outside vendors. So again, kudos to them for having a very open mind and wanting to grow and be in touch with what is actually happening out in the industry, or as the streets they would say. Or is that anyway? No shade, no shade. Anyway, but so there's a lot of aesthetics, and like he really the art direction, and it does change as we go along. It starts a certain way, and it morphs. We have to give it fermentation time, and for it to do that, very difficult at times, very intense. But we start one way, and we get into the sculpture, and you find out that it's not really what it wants, and then you find things that does work. Let me show you this. I could never imagine that you could have something that makes this beautiful arching like this way from this anatomical insect. Like it literally has this straight arch curve from this orthographic view, from this front profile. And then the side view is completely different. I wouldn't even think that was possible. The arm, and then it was really hard because the insect arm, and Daniel wanted this completely insect. I kept trying to make it like human, and so the instructions like, this is probably like the third or fourth iteration. Like, no, Eliza, don't do it. Like, why do you insist? I'm like, I'm not insisting. It just came out that way. It's like your aesthetics are subliminal sometimes. Like, you don't know that you're doing. And that's why my instruction to other artists is ignore your mind sometimes. Use your eyes only. You have to, your mind will tell you draw it this way, and you don't know that it's doing that when your eyes are telling you a different thing. So you have to do that. Now, some of this is not any of that. Some of this is definitely Daniel's interjection, like he wanted to shape. I didn't, but I'm glad he did. And there's things about this nose, and I was like, what? You can't do that. And then I'm like, oh snap! I get what he's trying to do. I understand it. And then I go in on it. I'm like, yeah, doot, 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 doot. Yeah. And then we get this, synergy. Oops, I didn't want to use that corporate word. Then we get this interaction, this interoperability. And I'm like, well, how about this? And he's like, yeah, well, how about that? Yeah. And then we're like challenging and pushing each other. It's like I've never experienced that before as an artist because I work so solitarily, so isolated. That's not a word. Sorry. But I do make up words, but like, not that way. But anyway, so I want y'all to keep your eyes on. I'm asking y'all to view this in a completely different aesthetic. And I'm going to tell you something. There's some top people that do get it. Some artistic. Y'all think these celebrities are no jokes. They are masters. Check out the long coats and the long cape coats. These moth ladies. This Ermine, I call her the Ermine Empress. These mantles, Europeans for years, they have, ermine, the white mantles of the cloak. Check out some of the hairstyles that came out with this big hair and aesthetic. Check out the buggy glasses, the bug eyes, and check out the mask on the face, the mouth covering the face. Check it out, y'all. I'm asking y'all to open your eyes and see this stuff in a different way. The way I had to stretch my norms and break past the normalities of the common thinking, unbeknownst to the human eye. Check them out, y'all. Check out how the length of these coats hit just above the or cloak or cape. These are God creations and God creatures that these things come from. The master artist of all artists, all creations, all artistry. Glory to God. The maker of heaven and earth. These are, we're a reflection of all these things. So, and how these are put together. We could never fathom, how he has done it. But, it's amazing to be able to have different artists that are willing to look and investigate and to appreciate these type of things. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate Daniel's work for allowing me to open my eyes. Like, the cloak of a royal mantle is a ermine. The ferret, like weasel kind of ermine that we make furs out of. But they had the little dot patterns, the little minks, that had the little dots. Like we're all looking at 101 Dalmatian Cruella and all of that stuff, Cruella de Vil. She has an ermine coat with the little spots on it. Did you know that that's a weapon? That's a camouflage weapon? The little ferret tail that has a little dot that they use on the royal mantles, the white fleece fur. That is set up so that if an eagle coming from from great distances, the keen eagle eyes swoop down, they will miss the actual body of the ferret or the weasel or the ermine. They'll miss it because they'll only see the contrast between the little dots of the tail. And so, they'll miss the body of the creature with the claws. That's a weapon. You would never think about that, So these are the things that come across, that the research of this is so deep, and so this is why I called it. So this is like, the moth has the same, defense mechanism on an ermine moth, this is kind of curtailed effort. I won't show you the references, but once I get more time, once I finish this, I'll talk about that more. So this is, hey, this is what I'm talking about. This is why it takes time. It takes real, you can't just skip through this stuff. There's no shortcuts, as they say, And I won't go into this stuff. There's just stuff about this. Like, I just was blown away. Like, once I like, wow, look at this curvature. Once I got this and how everything flows together. These hips, I was like, the hips of a woman pelvic area, you don't actually get to see. I realize that's one of the hardest parts for me to do because, it's always covered. You don't naturally get to see, even on a male character. I could go and look in the mirror and tell, where the hip bone is. I could just touch it without actually even seeing it. But and on a woman, female, I mean, I'd like to touch them in the pelvic area, but I don't want to go to jail. I saw this guy hit this woman on the booty. He didn't know her. Say, "Oh, you got a nice fat," and hit her on the butt. She knocked him to another period, another inclination, another time zone. She knocked the heck out of that guy. But fortunately for all the Instagram models, I get to see, and get to study this. I want to thank you. Actually, now that I said that, there is an Instagram model. I don't know if I can mention her name that, we reference. And I was on the Instagram and I actually came across the model. Now, it was a very vague, it was only reference. I didn't copy the model, so don't try to sue me or get money. I got a budget for this, a small, I ain't gonna say small, but I didn't get millions of dollars for this, even though I think it's worth millions of dollars. And so if you got millions, go ahead and get you one. It's going to be amazing sculpture. But there's an Instagram, I studied millions of Instagram models for this, but there was one in particular that, and Daniel only sent me like 4 or 5 reference images. I had the Marquette, a moth, and it's like, it was like Johnny Mnemonic. Where you get these encrypted encrypted photos as a encryption release, and you had to go into the metaverse. Never mind. Anyway, but I got these 4 cryptic like 4 cryptic images: an Instagram model, an Ermine Princess, and then the sculpt. I'm sorry, an Ermine moth, an Instagram model. Was it Ermine moth? I think it was a different moth. It wasn't Ermine. It was pink colored. It was pink and blue or something like that. But also I got those images. Instagram model. Oh, and one image of the back. Another model of the back. Because, anatomically, I love this shape. I loved how this was set up. It's like you have to walk, and I don't know if Daniel knows that he's doing this, but in 3D, and actually to see it, I had to rotate the model. This is like a window into this sensuality. It's just a small gap between, like, the butt, the back. But he was very, very insistent on having the actual muscles, the actual indentations for the spine, the vertebrae. So I had to go into the actual vertebrae. I actually went into all the muscles of the vertebrae. Oh man, it's so deep, and I really appreciate it. But to actually see it, you have to walk around. So the exhibit goers, like, I had to rotate it to actually see it in 3D. So it's like a window. It's like one of those to actually experience. It's not a diaspora. I don't know the name of it. Diaspora. It's, like the cartoons where the old cartoons, you have to actually spin a funnel type of thing, like the persistence of image. Like, they used to have each drawing of the animation, you have to spin it in order to see it, and you can look through it. Somebody did this interesting thing where they took what the camera sees and what the eye sees, but in order to see into this window of her sensuality, you have to walk around in a 360 degrees through this. Like, it's just amazing. And I'm like, Daniel, did you do that on purpose? Or, it's like with these arms, did you know that, or did you actually, like, so I don't know what's going on with Daniel's mind or how he sees things, but I get a little window into his mind and how he sees it, and it's just phenomenal. I mean, as an artist, there's a window into my mind, and some windows I don't look in. But You know, I keep the window shut. I am trying to open those windows. I do hope to open them myself one day. But as an artist, we'll see. You know, send me millions and I'll do it. You know, buy the work if you don't. You know, but there's certain aesthetics with this nose. I'm like, I didn't get it, and then I got it. And again, I want to give credit to some of these celebrities. You know, some that hack my work, you know, and copy. They really are experts and genius at hacking. Okay, they're genius. No shade, no shade. They're genius at copy. You know, but you know they have to do what they do. They have to reinvent themselves every day, and they have to do amazing stuff. And the way they adopt, and you know, maybe it's just their finger on the street, the way they get their finger on it. But I won't go there. But you know, if you look at some of this stuff, I have to give them credit because they really do. You know, look at some of these. I ain't gonna mention no names. You know, but this big hair. You know, the buggy glasses, especially during COVID. You know, and the mask covering the mouth, and just this V line in the dresses that they have. You know, just above the cleavage and the deep V lines and the hairlines here. So you know, and one of them even got this arch in the arm, and you know these I guess they're claws. I don't know. These tentacles. You know, some of the fingertips and fingernails. You know, women. You know, women are really geniuses at this stuff. You could, if you go stand on their ground, boy, they'll get you. You know, they'll be like, I won't say, they'll be like Welvin, Welvin the Great. Got him. You know, they got me sometimes on this. Got him. They got me sometimes. I hope he's doing all right. Anyway, these women can roll you. You know, is what I'm saying. They roll. You know, you know, they roll you. You know, but the fingernails, the stuff. You know, they have those attachments. You know, that this might be some connection to that. That might not be by chance, boy. But the claws on these, I had to actually put indentations. I don't know if you can see it. I was hoping they got it in the print, itself. They're not actually there. Daniel would send me images where he would remake them and show different details. So you know we would refine it and refine it. You know, and so I don't know. I think it would be hard to do even in sculpture, but in these claws, there's these little indentations. I had to do an anthropological. I don't know the name, and I don't want to go on the internet searching for stuff just to get the name. But these, I mean, oh man, I'm gonna say this: somebody, a multimillionaire, actress, voiceover for Disney. Songwriter, they did these earrings and they had these round things and it was by these claws that was in it and they had these. I give them credit for that because I wouldn't have saw it that way, but they wore them as earrings and they were long and they were at the same time. And again, she got this sculptured look. Well, like I say, I was like really surprised that made that formation. And then the striations of these wings, they caught it in a leather type of wrinkly kind of leather. I'm just like, yo, y'all not a joke. You know, I gotta get pissed off. But I have, forgive me, I'm not the most, worldly type of person. I live a very sheltered life and isolated, and so I'm not privy to a lot of the stuff that is out there, and nor can I be in order to do what I do. Here's something that is really difficult. I don't know how Daniel do these perfect lines. I had just asked him to show me how he get these lines actually perfectly clean. I guess it's a vector line, but I was following the lines of this, and it was hard as heck to get these lines correct. Anyway, I'm talking on and on and on, ain't I? And I didn't mean to because I got to get back to these animations. This was extremely difficult to do. I can't tell you so much. I just worn out by the time I got this stuff right. It was really, this took a lot. I'm sorry. I lost. You know, she got teeth on these spikes. You know, there was where my teeth. That's where I lost my teeth. Don't be mad. Oh, and I did the hair. I did some. They say don't get married to the design. Man, I did some of these hairs and whipped and whirled and curled these hairs. So aesthetic. Again, I got to give women. You know, I don't like the term empress, but you know, I don't use the term goddess, because you know maybe as some of my religious beliefs, it might exist or not. I don't know, but I had to give some of these women kudos in the sense of the way they can do their hair. These women, I have an extreme appreciation of women. I think because of my art, I might appreciate y'all more. But anyway, I'm just saying that they with the way they do their hair, the aesthetic beauty, I give God the glory for all of it. But dang, when he was making women, he was woo. So anyway, that's why Adam said, "Whoa." I think that's a technical woo. That might be in the Bible. Wow. Boy, women are no joke. The way they do their hair. So this, I did. They say don't get married to your design, and so I did some of the hair and flocked and flaxen hair and wavy flocks and locks and of hair. I got married to those. I was like, no, I don't want to change these. I was like doing, but eventually I had to concede, and I had to redo this so many times. But eventually I got it. It was hard to get. It was difficult, very challenging. And but eventually I did get it, you know. He was like, Daniel, so we had many iterations that Daniel, so I had to, even though, you know, I don't want to say, oh, I'm just a technical hand. I'm not. It's because of the artistic. But there's extreme amount of art direction towards Daniel's influence. So whatever I brought to the table was plus by Daniel's work, was expounded and elaborated on until his design was expounded, I can say, extended and really pushed. Forgive me if this just sounds like a bunch of greebling mobile jumbo to you, what I'm talking about here. But I mean, so you can see here the eyes are bigger. I was like, no. I kept, you know, interjecting. You know, at one point I even had a crease for the face, you know, for woman cheekbone, and I was like, but this is good. And so we do it a little curly. He's just like, well, make it softer. You know, he would allow me to keep it. He's like, I like it. You know, he said he learned, and I'm really privileged where he said this. You know, we learn from each other. Uh, uh, you know, I don't see it there. I don't see it there. How about he said that? I don't know. I'm surprised I don't see it there. Maybe it didn't come up. Uh, oh yeah, yeah. Here it is. We learn from each other. So it is a collaboration, but this is one piece of Daniel's work. He has tons and tons, and he has different variations of the Moth Lady, and you gotta check it out. Uh, he has some with some real beautiful. I'm not gonna say support his work. You know, if you into this, I mean, you know, the work has already been supported. So I don't say that. I don't usually say support me or anything. Buy into it. You know, become a part of it. You know, experience it. You know, take it to the next phase, baby. You know, come with us. Be a part of it. Experience it. Uh, you know, enjoy. God bless you all. Love you all. I will post this because it's just my thoughts. It's an artistic. You know, I say thoughts. Thoughts. I can't say that word too well. Anyway, enjoy. I just love the way some of the forums came out. Again, women, kudos. Stop cutting yourselves up. You're beautiful. You're wonderfully and miraculously made. I think that's in the Bible. So God bless you all. Love you all. Talk to you soon.